Swiss Ghost. Dr. Sophia Ellis, a renowned parapsychologist, stood at the entrance of the abandoned Hotel Bellevue, her heart racing with anticipation. She had always been drawn to the supernatural, and this hotel was rumored to be one of the most haunted places in Switzerland. Sophia's team, consisting of her assistant Tim and two experienced paranormal investigators, Mark and Emma, gathered around her, their equipment at the ready. "All right, let's get started," Sophia said, her voice steady. "We'll begin by sweeping the ground floor, then work our way up." As they entered the hotel, a chill ran down Sophia's spine. The air inside was thick with the scent of decay, and cobwebs clung to their faces like sticky fingers. The team began their investigation, moving cautiously through the dark, deserted corridors. Emma, who was equipped with a state-of-the-art EMF meter, suddenly stopped in her tracks. "Guys, I'm getting some weird readings here," Emma said, her voice barely above a whisper. Mark and Tim gathered around her, their eyes scanning the meter's display. "What is it?" Sophia asked, her curiosity piqued. "It looks like we have a massive spike in electromagnetic activity," Mark replied, his brow furrowed. "This could indicate a presence." Sophia's heart skipped a beat. She had been investigating the paranormal for years, but she had never encountered anything like this. "Let's keep moving," Sophia said, her voice steady. "We need to find the source of this activity." As they continued their investigation, the team began to experience strange occurrences. Doors would slam shut on their own, and disembodied whispers seemed to follow them everywhere. Sophia couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, that unblinking eyes were trained on them from the shadows. It wasn't until they stumbled upon a hidden room deep in the hotel's basement that they discovered the true horror. Inside the room, they found a series of ancient artifacts, relics from a dark and sinister cult. Sophia realized that the hotel had been built on a site of great spiritual significance, a place where the veil between worlds was thin. As they explored the room further, they uncovered evidence of a horrific ritual, one that had awakened a malevolent entity from beyond the grave. The entity, known only as the Swiss Ghost, had been terrorizing the hotel's guests and staff for decades, its presence growing stronger with each passing year. Sophia and her team knew they had to get out of there, fast. But as they turned to leave, they realized that they were not alone. The Swiss Ghost stood before them, its eyes blazing with a malevolent fury. "You should not have come here," it hissed, its voice like a rusty gate. Sophia tried to run, but her feet seemed rooted to the spot. The ghost began to laugh, a sound that was like nothing Sophia had ever heard before. It was a sound that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at the same time, a sound that seemed to shake the very foundations of the hotel. As the laughter grew louder, Sophia felt herself being pulled toward the ghost, felt herself being drawn into its abyss of madness. She tried to scream, but her voice was drowned out by the laughter, and then it all stopped. When Sophia came to, she was lying on the floor, her head throbbing with pain. The room was silent, the only sound the creaking of the old hotel. She stumbled to her feet, looking around frantically for her team. But they were nowhere to be found. Sophia stumbled out of the room, into the dark, deserted corridors of the hotel. She knew she had to get out of there fast, but as she ran, she could feel the Swiss Ghost's eyes on her, could feel its presence closing in around her. She knew she would never escape. The Swiss Ghost would see to that, and as Sophia stumbled out into the bright sunlight, she knew that she would never be the same again. The Swiss Ghost had seen to that, but Sophia's terror was only just beginning. For as she looked back at the hotel, she saw the Swiss Ghost standing in the window, its eyes fixed on her. And then the ghost vanished. But Sophia knew it was still there, watching her, waiting for her. And she knew that she would never be able to shake it off. The Swiss Ghost had her now, and it would never let her go. As Sophia stumbled away from the hotel, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being herded toward some unknown fate. She looked back at the hotel and saw that the windows were now filled with faces, twisted and grotesque. The faces began to laugh, a sound that seemed to carry on the wind. Sophia knew then that she was doomed. The Swiss ghost had her in its sights, and it would stop at nothing to claim her. She ran as fast as she could, but the faces seemed to follow her, their laughter echoing through the streets. Sophia stumbled and fell, skinning her knee on the rough pavement. As she looked up, she saw the faces closing in around her. She scrambled to her feet and ran again, but this time she knew she couldn't outrun the ghost. It was then that Sophia remembered the words of an old local legend. To escape the Swiss ghost, you must face your deepest fear. Sophia knew that her deepest fear was being trapped in a small, enclosed space. She had always been claustrophobic, and the thought of being trapped in a tiny room with no escape was her worst nightmare. Sophia turned to face the ghost. She stood tall, her eyes locked on the faces in the windows. "I'm not afraid of you," she lied, trying to keep her voice steady. The faces began to laugh again, but this time, Sophia stood her ground. She took a deep breath and began to walk back toward the hotel. As she approached the entrance, the faces stopped laughing. They seemed to be waiting for her, their eyes fixed on her with an unblinking gaze. Sophia pushed open the door and stepped inside. The hotel was silent, the only sound the creaking of the old wooden floorboards. She walked slowly through the lobby, her eyes scanning the room for any sign of the ghost. But there was nothing. Suddenly, Sophia heard a faint whispering in her ear. "You should not have come back." She spun around, but there was no one there. The whisper seemed to come from all around her, echoing off the walls. Sophia knew then that she was trapped. The Swiss ghost had her right where it wanted her, and then everything went black. When Sophia came to, she was lying in a small, enclosed space. She was trapped, with no way out. The Swiss ghost had won. But Sophia refused to give up. She began to scream, her voice echoing off the walls of her tiny prison. And then, something strange happened. The walls began to shake, and the sound of screams grew louder. Sophia realized that she was not alone. There were others trapped with her, others who had also fallen victim to the Swiss ghost. Together they screamed and screamed, their voices growing louder and louder until they became a deafening roar. And then, suddenly, everything was silent. The walls stopped shaking, and the screams ceased. Sophia was left alone, trapped in her tiny prison. But she knew that she was not alone. The Swiss ghost was still out there, waiting for her, and Sophia knew that she would never escape. The Swiss ghost had her now, and it would never let her go.